Well, firstly, speaking of characters that did not get enough screen time, you know who was so hot in that movie?
Ooh. Oh, you guys said
Kate
Kate
Blanchett.
Blanchett. Mm.
Oh, yeah, you already know.
Yeah,
You
I know.
already know. Yeah, forget global warming. We have Kate Blanchett.
Hell yes.
John, we're back. Alien
Woo.
and the Jester. I think this is episode 5. Uh, Crazy time that we live in because we had to take a long break. And
Burnout. YouTube burnout.
I know, right? The fame has gotten to our heads. Uh, it's too much for us. So we had to take a break. No, I apologize for any active listeners we have. Sorry for the break. We're back. And as usual, John, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah, burnout is a tough disease.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I work in tech. We work in tech. We're both
mm-hmm.
engineers,
Mm-hmm.
so we know that feeling like burnout. I think
Mm-hmm.
like affects. It's a crazy number. 60%
Right.
of engineers say they have experienced burnout before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, take care of yourself, and that's what we did.
Definitely. Yeah, and that's what we did. That's hey.
16 subscribers. It's too much.
Yes, shout out. We have 16 followers. I can't believe this. John, we talked about this. I thought we would have less than 10. I was surprised when we hit 10 and now we have 16. That's wild. So shout out if you followed us on Spotify or anywhere. And we have at least one listener from Iceland. I don't know if they're a follower, but bro or sister, if you're listening to us from Iceland, send us a tweet, send us an email. We would love to hear from you because we're basically stuck here. We don't really go outside too much.
Yeah, I would like to go to Iceland.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to. Anyway, John, so what is on your mind today?
All right, so speaking of Don't Look Up, so that was just referenced. Wanted
Mm-hmm.
to talk to you about this movie because I feel like I watched it
Yeah,
recently. I know you watched it.
I think a lot of people it was like the movie to talk about.
Well, I'm happy because I think it's a must watch. It's
Mm.
this year's must watch.
You know what? I'll tell you this. I will agree with you. It is a must watch,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna surprise you here. I kind of liked it.
Okay. Okay. Well, for those of the audience that hasn't watched it, maybe we can do, or you can do like a primer on it. Like, what is Don't Look Up?
Okay. You can correct any of the. It's basically a comet is coming. Two scientists find out that there is a comet coming, and they try to warn the world. And the world itself in the movie is based on uh, the Trump administration. I think it was written at that time. It was actually written pre-COVID, and then when COVID hit, I believe the writer introduced some of that element as well. So
Oh,
weird to
interesting.
think about that it was actually started. Yeah, it was very odd. It ended up becoming a commentary almost on the COVID, just how we responded to that, but it wasn't meant to be. I think the main message was about climate change. That's really it. I mean, I don't want to go too much in the spoilery area, but it's an interesting watch. It's an interesting watch.
Hmm. Yeah. Actually, the note you mentioned about the Trump administration, that itself is interesting. But
Mm.
maybe before we get into that, what did you think of the movie? Because we've talked about it briefly before,
Yes,
and I know you have your issues with the movie.
right. I definitely stoked your fire a little bit
Not a
because
little
you've
bit.
okay, a
Well, it
lot.
got hot.
He's got it,
Like
yeah.
something was warming, and I don't know if it
so
was the globe.
so I've been waiting for you to say you like something that I I don't fully like, because I, since the Attack on Titan thing, I'm like, how do I get this man back? I have to, and for all the trolls you have done, I have to get you back, man. So I did say, I stoked the fire. John said he loved it, and I said, hey, that movie trash. Uh, but I was very lukewarm about it because the movie wasn't bad. It was making some good commentary. I think there were some really nice moments in the film, especially toward the end. Actors, everyone acted really well. However, it felt the movie was doing too much. It didn't have to do that much, if that makes sense. Again, I don't want to. I'll, you know what? We'll skip to. There's going to be a timestamp of spoiler, non-spoiler. So my non-spoiler review is probably a little lukewarm, probably like 5, maybe 4.5 out of 10. Yeah, think about, and if we were doing out of
4.5 out of
5,
10.
yeah, so is that 2 out of 5 or something like
You're
that?
crazy.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And
not
don't
bad.
worry about
Listen,
spoilers. We can just
hmm
do like a spoiler. We'll just announce it.
yeah, yeah, we'll announce it.
4.5 out of 10.
Yeah, let's go with 2 out of 5. Let's
Two.
do
Okay.
skis.
Oh, 2 out of 4. Damn. Okay, it was doing too much. So that's actually interesting because I was did you want to expand on that?
Yeah, first of all, I will say that I lean on the political side of the director, without going into detail, and I understand what they were trying to say. I think
So
the
socialist. I'm
yeah,
just kidding.
sure.
I'm kidding.
Uh, so there's the
Not that that's wrong.
not that that's wrong. Yes.
Yeah, because I'm socialist too.
hmm So there's the comedic and and then the drama. I think it didn't find a good point in the middle for me personally, because I actually watched it twice. The first time I watched it, I was thinking of it as more serious, and I was like, okay, it was a little too. There's too much satire. There's too much parody. When a parody becomes a parody of itself, it just becomes stale for me. And then second time, I was like, you know what? Just gonna go in trying to enjoy it, like forget about everything else. And then I felt there was too much of the serious part. So it
Oh.
was it was actually interesting. Like I couldn't, whichever perspective I was trying to watch with, I was still kind of a little bit disappointed. I think they could have played down some of the characters, especially they shouldn't have had, I think, 2 or 3 plot lines. The subplot lines should have just been cut so it would have a stronger story. So there are movies that are similar to this that I really love. I don't know if you've watched Idiocracy. This was,
Yep.
I forget when it was made, but it was made early on. It bombed. People didn't like it at the beginning, but it became a cult classic. And when I first watched it, I was like, "This is way beyond. This is way beyond its time." It was beautiful. It was a man who woke up in the future where everyone is very dumb, and he becomes the smartest person in the future. He was an average person in the past, and it's a very realistic take, and people don't listen to him. And it has a very similar-ish ending to Don't Look Up as well. But I thought the line between comedy and drama was definitely handled better.
In
And I agree
idiocracy.
in Idiocracy, yeah,
Got it.
where it when it leaned on the comedy side, it brought it back. I don't know. I'm not a film reviewer. I don't know how to uh, say it correctly, but that's just the way I felt when I watched that movie versus this movie.
That's fascinating. So, just a short kind of intro to Idiocracy. It's directed by Mike Judge,
hmm
same person behind King of the Hill, Silicon Valley. V- Great satirical writer. Idiocracy as well. I agree with you. Very forward thinking for its time. But if you were to
hmm
watch it right now, you would see so many parallels. Like how did this guy predict this?
hmm
Right,
I
like
agree. Oh my
Trump.
god.
Yeah, our media. So that's okay. That's fascinating. So first, I wanted to address what what you were saying about there seemed to be too much in the movie.
hmm
I think that might have been a product of the directing style, because I know Adam McKay is very big into improv and letting his actors just kind of
Okay.
like run with it and not follow like line by line. So of course he has a script,
Hmm.
but I remember he was like telling the story of the scene where Jennifer Lawrence's character and Leo's character, they're so they know the comet's coming, and they already talked to Dr. Oglethorpe about it, the black scientist
Hmm.
that works at government, and they're waiting to see the president. And they're waiting, and they get like ripped off by
Right.
the general outside the Oval Office. They wait like 10 hours or some crazy number like that. And
Hmm.
finally, they get a meeting with Meryl Streep. And that scene where even when they're in the office, like Meryl Streep, she's not even paying attention to them yet. She's like on
Right.
the phone, like talking to someone else. Apparently, that scene was done like several times. And there was like span of like 20 times like takes that they did, and apparently, Adam McKay said that each of those 20 times, Meryl Streep had a different improvisation for the phone call every single time, which was like crazy to me. Like,
Hmm.
I just shows like back to what you said, great performances.
Great
This was
performance.
like,
I agree.
yeah, this was like the Justice League or like the Avengers of Hollywood. And yeah, that was crazy to me how she was able to do that. And I feel because he's like, I think he used to be a comedy writer on
Hmm.
SNL. Like that's just kind of his style to like include these takes that might not really forward the plot, but are just like funny to make it
Hmm.
more entertaining. But I agree with you. That might have like chipped away at maybe the overall message that the movie might have been trying to come across. Like, did you feel like it was an effective movie? Do you feel like it helped
Oh,
kind of
that's a good
get
question.
more people aware of like the problem that we're facing?
So unfortunately, I actually don't think that they succeeded on that. And I don't take points away from the film because of that, because I don't know what their intention was. So I'll tell you this: the first half of the movie I really liked. The second half is where, in my opinion, became a little too much. I think there, even though I love Timothy Chalamet's character, I thought he should have been introduced earlier. By the end, it felt like an extra baggage, even though, in my
Oh.
opinion, he's one of the best characters in the movie. I know that sounds like such a contradiction, but it was by that end, by that point of the film, I wanted the conclusion to kind of
Yeah,
work.
why was he in
It's
the movie actually? That's
I
actually true. Why
I,
did he need to be in the movie?
I think that's the thing of it, that the director wanted to introduce a lot of perspective. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, like his parents were evangelicals. He broke away from that. He was, I think, representing a certain demographic, and I get it. And I think, if it was a mini series where they would have a lot more time, introduce those characters. But for a movie, in my opinion, you got to keep it tighter. Then again, I'm not a director. I'm an idiot. So maybe, people do like this. I mean, critics don't like this movie, but people have, I think it has 78% on audience score and 52% or something on the critic score. And I really value audience score more than I do with the critic score. um so I think, and people do like his character. But again, there were a couple of characters who got way too much screen time for my taste. Going back to the message part, yeah, that's the thing. I think the way the movie came across, it was definitely heavy-handed with the message, and it was, the satire part mostly fell on the non-believers, and that is, if the message was trying to get out to the people who don't believe in climate change, or trying to get people to take action, unfortunately, I don't think this movie will be the thing. I think even my coworkers had a meeting and we talked about this, and one of them agreed. Basically said that if you're not already convinced of climate change, this movie is not going to make you convinced,
Hmm.
because of the way the message was dealt with. And there was nothing wrong with the way the message dealt with. In my opinion, it was pretty realistic. but unfortunately, I don't think it's gonna really convince many people who aren't already convinced.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think you're right about that. And well, firstly, speaking of characters that did not get enough screen time, you know who was so hot in that movie?
Who? Oh, you're gonna say
Kate
Kate
Blanchett.
Blanchett? Mm,
Oh, yeah, you already know.
yeah,
You
I know.
already know. Yeah, forget global warming. We have Kate Blanchett.
And that's one character I would have taken out, or actually, no, not taken out. I think that was a good character. Reduced screen time. There was
Oh, hell
very
no.
little.
Hell no. They
I,
needed more. They needed
they,
more. Kate Blanchett, she could blanch my comments any day. Damn, how does she keep up? What is she, like 60?
I no, there's no way she's
It's
60.
some crazy number that she does not
Let me
look at
look it
all.
up.
Like, man,
She's 52. And she does not look 52. You're right.
man. Yeah, something about her, like Thor Ragnarok, like
Oh yeah.
dude, like forget Captain Marvel, like give me some of that. Give me some of Thor's sister.
Oh my god. Yeah. I Marvel and killing off good villains. Oh my god. Why? Why? I agree with you. Though we could have used more
But
Hela, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. Sorry for that tangent, but just had to Clay Blanchett. It's just
Hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so unfortunately, I think you're right though. I
Hmm.
did watch some, I guess what do you call it, like talking heads, like content created by people who are more conservative, reviewing the movie,
Hmm.
and what they had to say was a little bit disappointing. First of all,
Hmm.
but I understand, and I'll get into this.
Okay.
Disappointing in that the general sentiment was that they thought, and I heard this multiple times, like this is kind of the persona that of the conservatives that are like watching this movie. They think the movie was very funny, they like the
Hmm.
jokes, and they think the first half was well written, on point. However, the second half, especially when they kind of raise the amount of criticism and like trying to turn Meryl into like a Trump character, they
Yeah.
really felt that and they did not
Hmm.
like it because to them, they didn't think that was fair and a fair representation of Trump. So they kind of like got caught on that, like that political aspect of it, and the climate change aspect of it. Like I won't say it went over their heads, but their opinion of it is just that climate change is overblown,
Right.
and this movie is just like adding more fuel to that fire of like alarmism, which is crazy to me. And maybe we can address that in this podcast and like we can also help just try to discuss, like try to understand why these people don't believe in climate change and like because I have a lot of thoughts on the matter,
Hmm.
like why I just think there's like a total misalignment of incentives here and it's like a
Hmm.
structural problem. There's like something at the root that is not aligned that is causing people not just they don't want not just they don't want to believe in climate change, but if they were to believe in climate change, these conservatives, it would just destroy their way of life. So they
Right.
physically cannot believe it because to believe it would mean like their own death. And I can get into that later, but I was just disappointed that their opinion was mostly that the left is the one pushing climate change all the time. So they didn't understand like the scene where Kate Blanchett and Tyler Perry are kind of trying to turn everything positive, like, oh,
Right.
like
Right.
Jennifer Lawrence is screaming about climate change, like, ha ha ha, let's not get her on the show next week. Like,
Hmm.
um, and they were trying to say, no, like the left doesn't do this at all. Like the left is constantly and the companies are constantly yelling at us about climate change. No, they're not. No, they're
Right.
not. Not nearly enough. Like if there is an actual comet coming and you can liken I think it is very similar. It's a very good metaphor. We're not talking about it enough. not at all. And
Hmm.
we can go into how climate change is like definitely real after maybe, but uh yeah, I'm with you. I just thought it was very interesting how conservatives like felt about this movie, and how they were just like really focused on like the political aspect of it and not the climate part of it. It was ridiculous to me.
Yeah, I think that's why I don't think the director meant like that was their intention. I thought it really was meant to be a satirical film that had a message that if it reached you, great. If not, it's just to entertain, because it really didn't. It was heavy-handed at for once, but it didn't do anything to describe climate change, right? So it was just saying this comet is real, it's coming, but that doesn't necessarily give. So, for example, if someone doesn't believe in climate change, telling them to equate it to if a comet comes, that's like you saying you don't believe it. That metaphor will totally just go over their head because they don't even think it's a real concern.
The
And I
thing
do
is, I
think,
think the intention, I
no,
think
no,
the
no, go ahead.
intention was to change minds, though, like by
Mm,
setting it up this way. Like I fully
mm,
believe Adam McKay, Leo, like by being in this movie, they fully wanted, their intention was 100%. Let's change some minds.
okay.
I do think that, like they were hoping people would be like, oh wait, that's me saying don't look up. Like that's like they were hoping the people watching the movie would see the people saying like not to look up at the sky, like, oh wait, is that me? I don't know. I would hope that happened more, and that was like a widespread effect, but I don't know if that was, because it seems to me conservatives are looking at that movie and it's like, no, that's all the left that's saying don't look up. Like
Uh,
they're the ones that are not looking up.
in that case, I will say the director and Leo are as out of touch as Elon and Jeff and even the people on the
That's
right, because
fascinating. That's
you
interesting.
know because that's not how, unfortunately in my opinion, that's really not how you change their mind. First of all, sometimes I do feel like what, and Leo has done a lot for climate change, he's spoken up about it. I have a hard time backing him as a very fervent climate change believer. I have a very hard time standing behind him because his own actions don't reflect the things he says. Because the right does attack him for taking private jets,
Got it.
yachts, and all that, and it's half true. Most of the carbon emissions that we give out are, it's the countries doing it. It's, the dumbass shit we see where the sustainable campaigns will say eat eat vegetables, don't drive a hybrid car,
Hmm.
carpool, or all that stuff. That makes no difference if the countries that are giving this ridiculous amount of CO2 in the atmosphere don't do anything about it. If there's not a country level action, nothing we do as individuals, unfortunately, will do anything. And some of that is, in my opinion, funded by those countries to make us feel bad and just say, "Okay, I've done enough on my part," and or make people feel guilty. It almost gives the onus on us. And in fact, I don't think, I believe the onus isn't. If we have very little effect in terms of individuals, I think as countries, I think the carbon emission is much higher. Whether that's not here nor there. Yeah, I do think this movie wouldn't be the way to sort of get people even on the fence on this side, because it's not really saying anything about climate change factually.
I see.
So these people, if people don't think climate change is real, it's hard for them to think of it in this term.
Got it.
And also the metaphor itself is, as we both agree, the metaphor is correct, but when you have this apocalyptical this apocalypse level metaphor, I totally understand and even sympathize with people for not wanting to believe it. Those the people, go up to random people saying there's a comet coming, people are going to think you're crazy, even if you have a graph saying it's definitely going to hit.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard for the human mind to grasp that, oh, it's coming to an end. When people, I feel like when people even get the news, if someone unfortunately gets the news like, hey, you have 6 months to live,
Yep.
even just that, just an individual life, that takes so much to process. The time takes, just the mental fortitude, and to think the world is coming to an end. Sometimes it's not effective to even plan for that. If the world's coming to an end, why bother? If I can't do anything about it, why bother with the effort of living in fear? So I kind of sympathize with that. I get it. So when we come in trying to, for climate change deniers, when we come in and say, look, we're going to be doomed, sometimes that message just doesn't get through. You kind of have to, in a way, make a boring documentary and kind of say, look, this is the case. I think it's too late to convince some folks. I think the young generation, I think we really got to work with educating the younger generation. So at the very least, we give the future a little bit of a chance.
Mm-hmm.
But um, yeah, I mean, climate change is. I mean, we can do a whole episode on that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I do disagree a bit on one point, which is
Hmm.
if the people can do have power in this sense, like, but I don't think they need to do a lot to make a big
Hmm.
impact. And that's where I think movies like Don't Look Up, which is why I like it so much, come into play. Where if you can just convince a few people and you can get them to change sides, even just that, like a lot of people like to ask, okay, climate change, what can I do?
Hmm.
I think I agree with you. Most of it is systemic. Like you need the whole country to kind of make these big changes into renewables, for example, to actually have noticeable impact. But I think people are like the root of that. So if, for example, all of America had a similar opinion on climate change, where weren't actively denying it, I think the amount that we could change as a government would be much faster and much
Hmm.
greater. So an example of that is I think when was it 1980s when we had George Bush Sr. as the president. Around this time, I believe there was a statistic that said over, I think it was around 70. It might have been 70 or 90 even, something crazy like that. Definitely above half of Americans believed that climate change was a real problem. Actually, back then it was called global warming. It wasn't
Right.
even called climate change until Frank Luntz came in and basically modified and wordsmith the term to make it less severe. And he changed it from global warming to climate change. Respect to Frank Luntz as a wordsmither, but that I don't think that was great for human society. Anyway, so around when George Bush Sr. was the president, I think 70 or 90% of Americans definitely actively thought like global warming is a big issue and we need to solve it. And the government, George Bush Sr., a conservative, he was actively trying to fix this. Like his opinion was like, okay, we need to do something about it. Time skip to now, fast forward to
Hmm.
now, that's very different. I don't believe it's 70 to 90% anymore. I would be, it might even be less than half. And it's all because I think someone from Exxon or some oil company
Yeah.
convinced George Bush Jr. that, of course, with a lot of money behind it, that we needed to take advantage of the fact that we didn't have scientific certainty on the matter and just abuse that and just run that to the ground until we could stew enough doubt and make this a political issue, not a scientific one, until we could get parity on this. And somehow
Hmm.
it became like a mixed bag and we had 50-50, the country was divided on this. And now we don't have as much progress as I think we would have if that never happened. So I think people just believing that climate change is real, and maybe sometimes like voting with your wallet, like you pay for renewables, like if you have the option, um just that general mindset, I think that goes a long way. I really do.
Yeah. I think you hit the point with corporate lobbies doing everything. I do think they're behind. Even if we get people behind it, sometimes money talks a little
Oh
louder than
yeah.
people, and that's the unfortunate thing about it. And they probably do a lot. They probably had a hand in dividing opinions, and this two-party system is, voting with your freaking party is the worst thing ever. You should be voting with policy. At least that will make you,
Mm.
force you to make some educated decision. Uh, yeah, because now the right is, associated with climate denial, and there might be people on the right who could be convinced, but it's just their talking point is the people that the majority of them are denying climate change, which makes the people running for that office deny it themselves, even if they don't believe it, to get votes, and that will
Uh-huh.
make even more of their constituents believe that, oh, climate change, because the person that is supposed to lead me is saying that it's a hoax, and that's the unfortunate thing. It's just a cycle that will just keep going and going, until something big happens. Like there has to be some big city that gets flooded, and I think that will make people really believe that something is wrong. And I actually do like that global warming got changed to climate change, because I mean, at that time, there's so many pundits talking about, oh, global warming, but it's still cold. Well, I want my winters to be a little warm, and
Hmm.
then I like the climate change because our winters are getting colder. Uh, you're gonna have these. I think scientists predict that it's gonna be uh, extreme temperature in both ends because of the change. So I do think it's a better term, and I think it also I hear less and less people using that dumbass argument. Oh no, it's not getting warmer. It's because they don't understand what the fuck global, like what the term actually is referring to.
I
But
see what you mean. Man, my opinion on this is that we can't have people's livelihoods tied to keeping oil. Like
mhm, yeah,
there's so many workers out there that their whole lives, like they work in these sort of like oil plants, or they drill for oil, and like their whole salary and like life is based on it. Yeah, of course these people are not going to vote to go renewable.
mm,
Like this is why we need some sort of like universal basic income or something. But that's a
mhm.
topic for another day. But yeah, was there anything else you wanted to say about Don't Look Up?
Don't not really, man. I do think it's a good movie. I don't know if I'll say it's a must watch. I think everyone should watch it if they have time. I think there are better movies. If you have limited time, I think there are better things, better movies that you
No,
could
there's no
watch,
better
perhaps.
movie.
Did you see Dune, by the way?
No.
Okay, yeah, that's a movie I think that could deserve your time a little bit more. Um, I think, but yeah, actually, I'm on Wikipedia, and it's funny. So according to Wikipedia, there's a on the U.S. climate change public people thing in before 2010, there was around 40% of Democrats who people who identified themselves as Democrat
Uh-huh.
who bel believed in climate change as a top priority. Only 40%.
Mm.
So that's not denying or anything. They just didn't think it was top priority. Now it's up to 80%, which is,
Mm.
I didn't expect that big change, big big change, to be honest. And for just to give the other side, the Republicans are just 20%, hovering right around there, not decreased, not increased.
Since when?
See, this only goes back to, it looks like, 2008.
Oh, wow.
And this is just percent saying that addressing climate change is a top priority. So not
Yeah.
necessarily the same. I think it's from the same survey. The question of, is global warming occurring? I overwhelmingly largely Democrats are saying yes. About half of the Republicans are saying yes. A little less than half saying no. Some saying don't know. So that's not too bad. I think there are people that you can, given right education and good information and not media brainwashing, because there are some stuff on the left that are also problematic as well.
Yep.
Let's not just say it's from one side only. But I think just a little bit of critical thinking can go a long way.
Yeah. Uh, I, that's very interesting. I wonder if there are any statistics of that before
Right.
2008.
I'm sure
Yeah.
there is. I was trying to look for it, but yeah, it's this the farthest it will go. At least on Wikipedia, I'm pretty sure there are public opinions. We'll probably do a deeper dive. Perhaps maybe we'll bring an expert. Like I'm not that savvy on climate change. I'll be honest.
Yeah, we'll bring an expert. Ab- Abdullah Saeed.
Oh, right. Oh, my brother. Oh, yes, of course, I'll bring him in. But anyway, yeah. Oh, thanks for listening. Next episode, I do want to bring up Elon's hair, so we'll tease the audience with that, and the metaverse. We have to talk about the metaverse.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I have some
What the
interesting
fuck is
opinions.
even the metaverse?
Yeah, I have some positive opinions about it, which may surprise you and the audience. But yeah, we'll get that next time. Yeah, that's
All
all we
right,
have.
peace.
Bye.